Hey, yo, I want to talk about the implications of this year's annual holiday promo card, named Cheer. And fair warning, I do not have the answers to the questions this card raises, but I think it's worth talking about anyway, so let's zoom in. If you're unfamiliar, every year Wizards of the Coast puts out a festive promo card with a stamp displaying both the year the card was printed and the phrase Happy Holidays in the bottom right of the art. However, regardless of the non-denominal nature of the phrase, the art itself is usually overtly Christmas themed. To get a close-up on a few examples, the 2013 card Stocking Tiger appears to depict a Christmas tree on the right, cookies left out for Santa at the bottom, obviously stockings and what I think is holly over by the fireplace, while the tiger itself is eating a reindeer-themed sock puppet. The 2019 card Decorated Knight appears to depict a man and his steed done up to look like a Christmas tree, with bells on the horn of the unicorn, a crown made of a Christmas wreath on the knight's head, ribbons and baubles on his chest, and more baubles and stars hanging from his lance. And the 2017 card Some Disassembly Required depicts... Okay, you've kind of got me on that one actually. I mean, that device is clearly shaped like a snowman, but I suppose candles are pretty Christmassy, and a severed foot is pretty Christmassy? Hang on, let's look at the flavour text. Now all they needed was a jolly happy soul. Oh, it's a Frosty the Snowman reference, I should have got that. Anyway, as you'll have noticed, up until a few years ago these cards were traditionally silver bordered. And like many silver bordered cards, they would have functioning rules text, but the priority of said card was less to make an actual game piece and more just to have a bit of fun. However, in recent years, Magic as a game has moved away from silver bordered cards towards black borders, and as you can see, the holiday promos have followed suit. But the festive, slightly silly mechanical rules text of their silver bordered predecessors remains. Now we'll take Seasonal Sequels as an example, which if you're interested, I actually did a whole video on this card with suggestions of how you can play it the year it was released, which is the same year Hasbro fired all those staff, link below. But back to talking about the mechanics of these now black bordered cards. If you read Seasonal Sequels rules text of pitch the titles of up to X holiday themed sequels to target spell, you'll realise these play more like something from an unset than a normal Magic card. Supported by the fact that similarly to non-canonic cards from unsets, these also have an acorn symbol at the bottom. Meaning we shouldn't take anything depicted on these cards too seriously from a canonical lore perspective, right? Well, try to put that idea out of your mind for a moment because I'm not so sure, and we're going to circle back to that at the end. For now, I want you to jump aboard the Polar Express that is my train of thought, so you can go on the same journey I did when first looking at this year's card. And in fact, you know what? Let's put it on screen for a moment, because this is the artwork for this year's card Cheer, and I want you to guess what was the thing that immediately caught my eye. Feel free to take a moment. Well, if you guessed this blurry person in the corner, you guessed correctly, because as far as I'm aware, and I'll admit I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of every card in the game, and there's probably a really obvious one that I'm forgetting that you'll tell me about in the comments making this entire video moot, but as far as I'm aware, this person marks a first in Magic. And that realisation was the first step in a wild journey that led me to an idea I think is quite profound, raises some weird questions and certainly has odd implications for the lore of Magic. But for now you're only at step 1 of the journey, and at this point to undergo the rest of it with me you'll need some context of our 3 main players. First, as a Magic aficionado, I assume you're familiar with Mishra. Depicted on these cards wielding what I assume is Doctor Strange's Time Stone because I guess the Infinity Gauntlet is in the game now, so why not? Of Mishra, the MTG Wiki says he was the brother of Urza, a cruel and ruthless Argivian artificer, eventually coming to control the western half of Teresier. He and Urza fought a long and bloodied war that came to be known as the Brothers' War. Unlike his brother, he did not become a planeswalker, something I'm sure we're all intimately familiar with. Slightly more obscure is our second person of interest, Santa Claus, aka Jolly Saint Nick, street name Father Christmas. Depicted in these 3 photos absolutely terrifying the life out of children. Of Santa Claus, the Republic of Turkey, Ministry of Culture and Tourism says he was born in the ancient Lycian city of Patara, an important city of the Mediterranean coast of Turkey, around 300 AD during a prosperous era for Patara. A rich wheat merchant had a son and named him Nicholas. His birth was accepted as a gift from the heavens, the fruit of his parents' prayers and vows, and a saviour for the poor people. It is believed he performed miracles even as a young man. According to one legend, Nicholas was trapped under the wreckage of an old church and survived it while his mother was crying and calling out for him. You know, the standard Christmas story that we're all familiar with. And our third and most obscure person to mention is a relatively unknown carpenter who goes by Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the Lamb, the Light, the Redeemer and Son of God. Depicted in these 3 images of him on the cross with a kind of physique I could only dream of. Of Jesus, the 1970 musical Jesus Christ Superstar says he is dangerous, he is dangerous, Jesus Christ, he is dangerous. Which I think makes him sound like Jason Bourne. Anyway, the last piece of context that you need to know is that the holiday of Christmas is an annual festival commemorating the birth of Jesus Christ. And importantly for today's video, we need to know that popular holiday traditions include gift giving, displaying various Christmas decorations including Christmas trees, Christmas lights, nativity scenes, poinsettias, garlands, wreaths, mistletoe and holly, and, additionally, several related and often interchangeable figures known as Santa Claus, Father Christmas, Saint Nicholas and Christkind are associated with bringing gifts to children during the Christmas season and have their own body of traditions and lore. And so the point I'm making is that all of these cards are Christianity coded. The phrase Happy Holidays aside, the festivities depicted on these cards are, I believe, clearly representative of Christmas, with its trees, presents and wreaths, a holiday so Christian it literally has Christ in the name. So back to this year's card cheer, and like I say, maybe I'm wrong, but for the very first time to my knowledge on a Magic card, this little person depicts something that I believe has never been depicted before. Can you see it? What if I make it red? Do you see it now? That person is dressed like Santa, which is fascinating to see in Magic and raises some very interesting questions. Because if you don't know, Santa Claus was originally envisioned as wearing green, and that's because he was a pagan winter forest spirit built upon the history and folklore of that 3rd century Turkish saint by the name of Nicholas. However, in the 1930s, the Coca-Cola Corporation decided to adopt Santa Claus as a mascot for their soft drink, and in doing so recoloured his suit to Coca-Cola red. And with Coca-Cola's global distribution network, it's this version of Santa Claus that lodged itself into the minds and memories of everyone across the planet. And I really do mean that. The idea of Santa Claus is a global one, and you can find iconography of him in his red suit worldwide. Does that mean that Santa has stopped being a Christian symbol and is now a Coca-Cola symbol? Has a corporation co-opted a religious holiday? Well, that's just one more question that I can't answer. But as obviously Christmas coded as these cards are, I don't believe we've ever seen any real reference to Santa depicted before. The closest I can think of is this treasure token with Liliana giving out presents in front of a Christmas tree, and while I'll admit that probably is a Santa's hat on her head, I think if this image were colorized, the hat would actually remain black, neither Santa's red or green, not to mention that this card is clearly an alt art for a token, and I just don't feel that this is a concrete enough of an example to say yes, Santa confirmed in Magic. So given that I feel this year's card does meet the criteria for a concrete confirmed Santa reference, I find it fascinating that rather than use the iconic red everyone knows the character for, they instead went for the original green colour, which, and stay with me here, means that if the characters from the world of Magic the Gathering are aware of Santa Claus, they seemingly aren't aware of the modern Coca-Cola interpretation, but instead his 3rd century folklore version. And given that Magic has crossed over into our world's history and legend before, I think the idea that they're aware of at least the original pagan version of this character completely tracks. Which, if true, considering that these characters are also clearly aware of the concept of Christianity and the holiday of Christmas, begs the question if these Magic the Gathering characters know that for us, Santa and Christmas are intrinsically linked. Now, an argument could be made that while Cheer depicts someone dressed as Santa, it doesn't specifically depict Christmas, meaning that this feast could just be a winter pagan festival instead, suggesting the characters aren't aware of the connection between Santa and Christmas. But I don't think so. I think that present is pretty Christmas coded. Although maybe that's just further reference to Santa too? It's hard to say, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is the reason Magic has so many Christmas references but so few Santa references because the in-universe Magic characters aren't aware that for us the two are connected? And like I say, I can't answer these questions, but in trying to, I did further research that raise some more peculiar implications that I want to talk about. So tickets please as we once again board this Christmas train of thought. First stop, Gilwain Casting Director from the Plane of Eldrain, which maybe depicts a nativity play? We have a potential reference to the Three Wise Kings. I'm confident saying that's a Christmas tree. And while I don't know if this is a Santa's hat, it has a Star of Bethlehem on it, so I don't know, Christmassy? I'd say yes. But Santa-y? Maybe that's just a wizard's hat. But also it would make sense for them to assume Santa is a wizard, so maybe it still tracks. Hard to say, however, importantly, I think the Christmas reference at least is undeniable. This card is black bordered and a non-acorn card, meaning it's canon, proving the in-universe people of at least Eldrain know about the holiday and celebrate it to the point of putting on plays, and that's happening on more than just silver bordered cards. And if you're interested in what the nativity would look like from the perspective of another dimension, the play has royalty in it, presumably for the Three Wise Men or Jesus himself. It has a sorcerer in it, again maybe for the Three Wise Men or Santa. But also it has a monster, which I like to think is explained by them not knowing what a manger is and assuming it's some type of rabid beast. I spend 2 and tap manger until the beginning of my next end step. Players can't use cribs as beds. Next up on our train of thought is another silver bordered card in the form of Mishra's Toy Workshop. I'm seeing wreaths, I'm seeing presents, I'm seeing baubles. I think I'd happily say this depicts Christmas, but also is obviously a reference to Santa's workshop on the North Pole. The teddy bears and candy canes I feel prove that. So Mishra at least is aware of the connection between Santa and Christmas, which then made me ask the question, wait, does Mishra celebrate the birth of Christ? Does he believe Jesus died for everyone's sins, including his own, even though he's from another plane of existence? Is Mishra a Christian? Does he think he's going to heaven? And while I may not be able to answer what the people of magic know about Santa Claus, I think 1994's canonical set Antiquities can answer the question of whether Mishra believes in a Christian god. See, the card Mishra's Factory was recently reprinted in Dominaria Remastered, and as you can see, black bordered and no acorn, so we know it's canon. But if you look at the original prints of it from Antiquities, you'll see it has 4 seasonal variants of the art. And if we look at the winter variant, yeah, Christmas lights, a Christmas tree on the left there, and if all that wasn't blatant enough, a Star of Bethlehem, giving us unequivocal proof that even if Mishra doesn't believe in Jesus, he certainly celebrates his birth, making me think that perhaps the idea of Mishra having a North Pole style Santa's workshop isn't an idea so far-fetched that it needed to be printed on a silver bordered card. And as our train of thought pulls into its final station, I want to hear what conclusions you've reached. Do the people of magic know about Santa? If so, do they know he's connected to the holiday? And does the fact that Mishra puts up Christmas decorations in winter mean he celebrates the birth of Christ? Let me know in the comments below. Come check me out on Patreon, I could use the support. And to end, I wish you all a happy holidays and a wonderful Christmas. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone that supports me, like 27 publications, Eggboy the Particle that permeates all existence, Blank Space, Wanpako Jozu, Miss Murder, a random Patreon, Ominous Jazz, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, have a wonderful holiday. Most importantly, subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know, and I will see you next year. Wait, no, actually I've got a quiz before then. Come back for the quiz, it'll be a fun one. A cruel and ruthless Argivian artificer, eventually coming to control the western half of Teresier, he and Urza fought a long and bloody war that came to be known as the Brothers' War. Unlike his brothers, he did not become a planeswalker.